Croeso, hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. And this week as well, because we are such sellouts, Wrexham Lager, who, if you were listening last week, sent us an email while we were recording. If you watch it on YouTube, I've got the bottle. We've got 2 crates. We've also got a gift pack from our good friends at Wrexham Lager. Obviously, drink responsibly. If drink is not for you as well, that's fine. We like Wrexham Lager. We are going to toast the Wrexham win over Burton on today's podcast. We're also going to look at, should Steven Fletcher get a new contract? We'll take a look at Wycombe's win over Huddersfield, what that means for the League One promotion picture. And of course, we'll preview this weekend's match against Wigan Athletic. All that and more on today's Rob, Ryan, Red. Nath, sun's shining. I'm about to crack open that Wrexham Lager with my Wrexham Lager branded bottle opener as well. How
jealous.
are you doing? I guess
I'm good. I'm good. I've no Wrexham Lager. I'm not even going to show you the brand of the water. You can work out for yourself because they've not sent it to me.
It says on the other side.
Okay, well there you go. If you've got eagle eyes, my eyes don't work as that good. But I'm on the water. You're on the Wrexham Lager. I'm doing well actually. We got a lot of messages that said, "You guys." There you go, Yakida. You've got a lot of messages saying, "You guys better not come on and jinx us and be the reason." I'm very confident. I'm as confident as I have ever been. And I was actually thinking about months and months ago when we were talking about how second was in play, and at that point we were like 4th or 5th maybe, or maybe even a bit higher. But we were saying like second is definitely on, like it's definitely on. And at the time, people were like, I still think playoffs is the way to go. It's finally in our hands. Whatever happens from here on out, various situations could take place. Nothing is signed, sealed, delivered as it is for Birmingham already, but it's in our hands. If you'd have offered Wrexham fans and you and I, Rich, it's in your hands with 5 games to go, 2 of which are at home. I think you'd have snapped every hand and every limb off possible for that to get to the championship. I think you just said, absolutely. I don't need to know the teams. I don't need to know the circumstances, the points difference. It's in your hands with 5 games to go, and for that, Parky and the players deserve an immense amount of credit.
Oh yeah, we would have plugged a lot more than Wrexham Lager on the podcast if someone offered me championship promotion at the start of the season. I guess, congratulations to Birmingham, the plucky underdogs. Apparently, Birmingham fans have this mantra where they said, everyone said we'll struggle in League One. I don't remember anyone saying that last summer. Fair play, there might have been some, but congratulations to Birmingham. Foregone conclusion, they'll go get the league title. Obviously, they're in the EFL Trophy this weekend as well.
Hopefully they don't get the title this weekend, because I think if we drop points, they can toast a win at Wembley and the title. So the small wins, but we were getting inundated with. I think I posted the table on TikTok, Rich, of where we are, and do follow us on there. It's great support over on there, and a lot of the comments were like, Wrexham, most hated team in League One, come on, Wycombe. On the night that Birmingham got promoted, we were getting these comments. And I just thought, Wrexham fans, I think, can not really sympathise, but they can look at Birmingham and go, yep, everyone said it was a foregone conclusion. You spent loads of cash. But as we found in the National League and in League Two, it's not a guarantee. It definitely goes a long way to, if you outspend everybody, that's great. That's a big help. You get better players, but you've still got to do a good job. So yeah, I would just say, before this turns into a bit of a Birmingham loving, which it definitely is not, congratulations. I just hope we're a week or 2 behind you.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, Nate, we'll get on to Burton quickly, but, the elephant in the room is the fact that Wycombe weren't at Huddersfield on Tuesday night. What that means then for the League One table is that we've now played the same amount of games, 41. Wrexham have a 3-point lead over Wycombe Wanderers. So Wycombe needs Wrexham to drop points in the last 5 games, otherwise they can't overtake us. It's as simple as that. Nate, what are you thinking right now? You said you're optimistic. I think after the Burton game, and certainly the fact that Wycombe had dropped points that day as well, to me that felt like a really defining moment in the title race. And I read Sutty's piece on The Athletic, I think looking back at the 76-77 season, where Wrexham needed in the end, it was a very low amount of points from the last 5 or 6 games of the season. Invariably, Wrexham somehow threw away, a 4-point cushion over Crystal Palace back in the days where there was 2 points for a win, lost twice to Crystal Palace, lost to Mansfield as well. Wrexham have been in a position like this, probably a better position than this before, Nath, and they've messed it up. Do you have the confidence right now that we're going to learn from, albeit very long ago, mistakes and get it done again this time? Or
I'm supremely confident, and I just think one game a week, no midweeks. It's just, look, you're able to. Sorry, that Wrexham Lager has thrown me. Very, very kind Wrexham Lager, by the way. That Rich put it on our Instagram. Very, very kind. Anyway, back to my point is that, yeah, I'm just supremely confident. I think you've got Sam Smith scoring goals. Rodriguez, we were copping a lot of heat between the two of us because we said he didn't look too happy when he came off, and everyone said he's obviously injured. And I think you and I were in agreement at the time when we posted that it didn't seem to be obvious to us anyway.
I think you can also be injured and not be happy coming off.
Right, but apparently, we were stirring the pot there. Anyway, aside,
you were. I was not doing tweets.
No, you were just sending me private messages. But anyway, let's not get into the ins and outs of that. I'm just supremely confident. Smith is scoring goals. We've got good depth, and like I say, there's still games that they seem winnable, but there are tougher games on that Wickham schedule that I just think if they go flawless and they somehow do it, then fair play to them. But you know what I was looking into, which was no good for anyone's heart rate, but I did get an Instagram DM that said, what happens if the goal difference, which is now only 2 different, what happens if that is the same? So what happens if it's level points and level on goal difference? Well, then, so your level points, level on goal difference. It then goes on goals scored. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but let's just say their level as well. Then it will go on head-to-head. Now, that's a lot of mitigation, but Wrexham do own the head-to-head. They beat them home and away. Goals scored, I would imagine we are probably below them.
Yeah, we are.
And then goal difference, we're obviously just too different. Our defence has been very, very good. So
they've scored 7 more goals than us. We've conceded 5 fewer.
So let's just say, I don't think it will come down to goal difference. I know we said a few weeks ago that might be the determining factor. I think it is very close now. Any side who drops points now will lose ground in the goal difference, whether it's a draw or a defeat. You are going to see a 1 or 2 goal swing either way. If Wickham were to lose 1-0, we were to win 1-0, suddenly you're level on goal difference. It's not as stark. And I really did think in that second half against Huddersfield that Wickham were going to run the score up a little bit, which would have been more problematic. But yeah, I just think now's not a time to be, easier said than done, worrying about, we've got ourselves into a brilliant position, a position that we weren't in. We were the hunter for ages, and now we're the hunted, and it's a sprint to the finish. And I just think we've got in Parkinson, in Parkin, in Rodriguez, in Fletcher, in McLean, in Dobson, in O'Connell, really experienced players that I don't think the nerves will get to them like it might to some of those young Wickham players. We'll see.
I guess, as well, the other aspect on that is, in the worst case scenario, if it came down to the last day, Wickham get promoted on goal difference. The reason we didn't get promoted isn't because we didn't score enough. It's throwing away that lead at Charlton. It's that Elliot Lee miss the other week. It's
against Cambridge,
the Conqueror having a stinker against Stevenage, was it? Where he let into very soft goals. Yeah. There's lots of moments where you could have theoretically thrown
Bristol
away
Rovers away in the
Rovers
downfall,
right at the end. So again, what the table won't lie come the end of the season. And if we're a few goals off, that won't. I know you can use that as a metric of why binary we didn't go up, but it'll be cheaper points lost, really, that meant that goal difference should have come into account. And again, I mentioned that Sooty piece. This is the actual extract from The Athletic. He says, Wrexham fans of a certain vintage appreciate this better than most after their team blew a similarly promising position to today in the 96-77 season. Back then, Wrexham had 5 games left and looked odds on to clinch promotion to the second tier. It was the days before 3 points for a win, so Wrexham only needed 2. You got 2 points for a win, and the top 3 went up. There were no playoffs, okay? So Wrexham were in third with 5 games left. Going into the final weekend of April, Wrexham were 5 points clear of Crystal Palace in 4th and had a game in hand. 5 points clear when it's 2 points for a win and a game in hand. They'd won 5 of the last 6 and drawn the other. Despite that, Wrexham failed to win any of their final 5 matches, lost to Crystal Palace twice, and lost to Mansfield Town, who were champions, and somehow fell out of third place over Terry Venables' Palace. Obviously, Wrexham
Right.
went champions the following season, so there is a bit of optimism at the end of that story. But I'm not getting carried away yet, mate. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to counter that. I've got to do my level best to try and draw you back from. You're getting sucked in by that Sutty pessimism or that realism that Sutty is presenting. I need to draw you back to the side of optimism. And Craig
Another
Jones
Wrexham
shared
Lager will do that. Don't you worry about that.
Craig Jones shared this on Twitter that I think is good context for where Wrexham are now. So 41 games played, and Craig put, it's important to remember that 10 games ago, Wrexham were 5 points behind Wickham. So in the 10 games since, there's been an 8-point swing. And, so after 31 games, we had 17 wins, 7 draws, 7 defeats, and we were 8 behind in the goal difference stakes, and we were 5 points behind. So there's been an 8-point swing, and we're now only 2 behind on the goal difference. So in terms of, if you just looked at it as a neutral, one team is clearly peaking at the right time. And I think, it was a slow start for Rodriguez. We mentioned that. I wouldn't say a slow start for Sam Smith. He's come in and done really well, and he's in the hunt for Golden Boot. I think he's 2 behind Jay Stansfield and Richard Kone. So you never know. Barney's top of the assists. Defensively, we look amazing. We've got the PFA League One Player of the Month in goal. I should say congratulations to Arthur Okonkwo for that. These individual awards don't come around every single month, so congratulations to him. And I just think, you've got statistically one of the best defenses in the EFL. You've got strikers that are scoring goals. You've got great depth, players that we think should be playing, Barney and Revan and McLean and Longman and all these other players that play. If you can't feel optimistic now, then God help us next season, wherever we are. Well, you know what I mean, though. Like, you got Fletcher coming off the bench. You got Marriott came on and scored, and I just I think I was just chuckling because the amount of people on socials that were like, Wrexham are on the biggest fraud watch going, a terrible football team, and if they do go up, they're going to get 0 points in the Championship. Like, this is one of the best.
More points than most of their teams will get in the Championship next season.
You know what I mean? It's this group of players is one of the best, if not the best, in my entire lifetime. So if I can't feel optimistic now, I don't think football's for me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like I said, the position we're in, you cannot complain whatsoever about it. I just don't want to get too carried away in the sense that if we didn't finish top 2, that it's suddenly a bad season. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've seriously overachieved this season. The momentum's going. I'm feeling very good, and it's very nice being a Wrexham fan. What I wanted to ask you, Nath, I know you've got your hand up there. You want to butt in as well. What does give me confidence is Wickham's final 5, because I think, as we said last week, look, if Wickham go up from this position, fair play to them, because I would not swap my fixtures with what they've got. I think we've got a couple of difficult ones. I think Blackpool away could be horrible. Charlton at home, I'd be more confident about if there's certain prize up for stakes in that one. How many points do you think we need? 5 games left, maximum of 15. As we said, Wrexham know that if they better Wickham's results, they're up. How many points do we need?
I think 10 will get you over the line. I think 10 out of the 15 will be enough. I could see it being done before the final day, and the final day being a bit of a damp squib, if anything, result-wise, against Lincoln. I just think
You're trying to put people off buying Lincoln tickets there.
Yeah, this will be out just before, so don't worry about it if anyone listens straight away. What I would say is, Wickham have got to play Bolton, who I think any long-term listener of this podcast knows how I feel about Bolton. I would be backing Wickham to win that one, but it's still a tough game. Bolton still need to win to try and get into the playoffs.
Nate, that is a better question, isn't it? Rather than focusing on ourselves for the last 5 results now, it's what do we, as neutrals, Wrexham fans, I guess we're biased, not neutrals in it, but what do we expect Wickham to get from their final 5? Because that tells us how much Wrexham need to get.
Yeah,
so
I think they'll win. Yeah, I think they'll win that against Stevenage. Yeah. I think they'll win that.
Away?
I think they'll win that.
Charlton at home.
I think they'll draw that.
That's 7 points. Leyton Orient away.
I think they'll lose that.
And Stockport at home.
Draw that. It depends on the concept. Depends on the stakes of like.
So Wrexham would only need 6 points by that logic.
Oh right, yeah. But depend. but then for us, if you were looking at it, I think we beat I think Blackpool's a tricky old game. I would expect us to beat Wigan. You never know. I think Charlton at home is a very tough game. You know, you'd rather be going into that needing a point than, I know obviously you're going to go and try and win the game, but obviously the less points you need going into that one, the better. I just think, those results I've just gone through there, what Bolton, I've backed them to win away at Bolton. I'm sure all the listeners won't agree with that. Orient, look at the playoff race, right? With Bolton, Leyton Orient, Reading, who else is in there? Huddersfield. Wickham have got to play all of them. I know they beat Huddersfield last night. They're a pretty poor team, I think. Reading beat them. They're a good team, and arguably they're the best story in League One this season with everything they're going through. I think they are the team of the year if such an award existed
as well, and their top goal scorer.
And we'll probably get onto it maybe towards the summer, but there's a player there that I would have in my 5 sort of transfer targets for Wrexham in the summer, and it's not Charlie Savage. So the Reading beat them.
Headline. That's a T, isn't it?
Wrexham Insider are getting giddy. Reading beat them. Bolton have got to play them. Orient, you said, have got to play them. Huddersfield, they've just beat. So, and we've got to play Blackpool. All these teams that are desperately trying to get into the playoffs. Stockport will be in the playoffs. Charlton will be in the playoffs. One of us or Wickham will be in the playoffs. So that last spot, those are the kind of games that are nightmarish now, which is why Blackpool's a tricky one. But I'm not going to go into these games now worried about us dropping points, because I sort of understand, yes, that the stakes are massively high. What will be, but we've got Phil Parkinson as the manager, and all right, the style's not great, it's not amazing, but it's effective, and we win football matches. And I think if you offered me a Phil Parkinson Wrexham or a Mike Dodds Wickham to get more points between now and the end of the season, I'm going to ride with Parkinson. I'm going to ride with the manager who's delivered 2 straight promotions.
Brings on to a good question, this, Nath. It came from John on our email address, robryanred@gmail.com. Thank you for getting in contact. Again, I don't want to get too excited with the actual wording of this, but he says, if Wrexham were to get promoted for a 3rd consecutive time, where does that put Parky in the all-time great coaching achievements in EFL history? I'd imagine many of the all-time coaching greats would have trouble matching that result. And I think it does bring on a good point, doesn't it, Nath? Because when I ask you what is a good manager, there's a temptation to say they're media savvy, they've got a nice beard, they wear white trainers with a suit, they're Portuguese maybe, they play 4-3-3, it's all gegenpress, high press, false nines, they score 3-4 goals a week. Or is a good manager one who wins most of his games, makes difficult decisions, and plays effective football?
It's the latter. Professional sport is about winning.
Exactly, and he's never going to be fashionable, and you'll always get people who critique him. I know we've given him his fair amount of criticism, and there's obviously, we pay to watch football because we do want to be entertained, but it's not his job to entertain us. That is the conflict there, I suppose.
Right.
It's not his job. It does not matter to him whether I enjoyed the match or not. If they get 3 points, that's all that matters. 3 promotions. We will never get the credit it deserves if this happens.
Never
in a million years, because it's oil money Wrexham who have just steamrolled their way through the leagues. And yes, the National League we had a huge advantage in that league. Don't get us wrong. That wasn't the colossal achievement maybe that we like to think it is, but the fact we did it in that title race was a huge, huge hurdle overcome. That was ridiculous. One of the best title races of all time. League 2, we expected ourselves to be in the mix. To get over the line felt almost anticlimactic. It felt like it was quite achievable.
We expected to go up there. I think let's be real. We expected to be in that top 3.
But League 1, honestly, I cannot remember any Wrexham fans saying we'd go up automatically this season.
So I got a phone call this week, and I obviously, you won't know the person, and I won't out them anyway, but they were writing a piece about disruptor clubs in the EFL, or not even in the EFL, just in the pyramid, and teams lower down in non-league, and it was all about teams that are spending way more than their rivals, sort of thing. And Wrexham were one of this person's disruptor clubs, and the general theme of the piece, I don't know if it's out yet or not, but the general theme was how all these clubs are destined to fail, and they were just trying to get my riposte to, did I think Wrexham are destined to fail? Which I argued no, and I think they've been a disruptor club that has shaken up the pyramid in terms of there's now copycat documentaries, and ultimately they appear sustainable. They've paid off the owners' loans to the tune of, what was it, up to 15 million? I think we said 11, but it was actually a little bit more than that in the end. You've got the Allen family have come in, they're worth billions. And Eric Allen and Colleen seem to be very much embedded into the community, meeting a lot of fans. They don't seem to be in a rush to, abandon ship. We had a little bit of a back and forth about what the average player in the championships may be on, about 20 grand a week. So, Wrexham wouldn't have that financial superpower as maybe they did not maybe, they definitely did in the National League and League Two. League One, what do you reckon? Our wage bill in League Two was 11 million. What do you reckon it's going to be this season? 15, 16, 17, something like that, maybe? So that's going to be only second to Birmingham. Let's be real. We've probably got the second highest wage bill. We'll see next year.
Unless there's a relegated championship club who's still playing.
Maybe at Huddersfield, but we're going to be up there. Let's just say we're going to be in the playoff mix then, at the very least.
Certainly, yeah.
So again, we've spent handsomely, but still, it's a huge achievement. And the point I was making to this guy,
it's also
was saying
spending beyond your means, is it? Which is crucial in this argument.
This guy was talking about how, what's sort of been the secret? Don't get it? Is it just been spending money? And my point to him was, I think the secret has been hiring Phil Parkinson. The opposite, the antithesis to the documentary. Could you imagine a great manager he had a hugely successful, long career, multiple promotions, Neil Warnock, for example? He would have loved a documentary crew following him around all the time. Very entertaining, very humorous, but might have got swept up a bit by the filming. I think Phil Parkinson, if the documentary stopped tomorrow, which I don't think it will, I don't think he would be too bothered. I don't think he would miss it.
I think it'd make his job easier, if anything.
Right. But you know what I mean? I don't think he would miss it. I don't think he's against it being there. That was obviously part of the parameter when he came in. But he's very just normal. And if anything, the documentary's humanized him a bit, but he's just like very normal, a classic rugged football manager that's going to play, attritional football. Like you say, there's that conflict of fans pay to be entertained. He's paid to win football matches. The two sometimes go hand in hand, but they don't always. And he's gone, I want to win. I want to get to the top as quick as possible. And he looks like he can do it. He looks like he's going to do it. So where does his legacy stand in the EFL overall? I mean, there's been some other great achievements. Kieran McKenna taking it switch straight to the Premier League. I think as a double is very, very good. To go from League One to the Premier League first time of asking, I think is great.
Holloway at Blackpool felt seismic at the time.
Holloway's great.
Yeovil some great Championship.
Yeah, Gary Johnson over the years, and you think Tony Pulis when he was at Stoke, and there's been a lot of good managers that haven't got the credit. But Parkinson will never, I don't think, get the credit outside of Wrexham that he deserves and already deserves and will deserve if he pulls off another promotion, because it will always be tinged with false narratives and it'll almost be like news.
It will almost be like Pep Guardiola at City. He's not a good manager because he's had loads of money. I know it's different in that regard, but do you know what I mean? That some of the top managers at bigger clubs don't get credit because they've got a lot of money at their disposal. Phil Parkinson
we're giving him credit, yeah.
And Phil Parkinson still has to make the difficult decisions. He could easily just be playing Paul Mullin and Ollie Palmer up front every week, and we could just be languishing in the bottom half of the table.
Well, like I said, was it last week? He decided it was time up for Ben Tozer. He decided it was time up for Luke Young, Aaron Hayden, Ben Foster sort of decided himself, but I think he did Parky a favour there.
Don's decided for Ben Foster that it was time to retire.
And Swindon. Mullin, Mullin, he's sort of called time, and it looks like Palmer, who's his only minutes now is in the reserves against Chesterfield. He's made tough calls that he knows are not going to be super popular, but what does winning cure? Absolutely everything. And we're doing that a lot more than we're losing.
And to whoever phoned you for that story, I'd like to point out that last week, Fleetwood Town's accounts were released. Did you see those?
Yes. So how much did they lose? 7 million? 4 million or something?
£9.3 million takes their total loss to £40 million.
Right.
So yeah, Wrexham are ruining football, guys. Remember that. And Phil Parkinson doesn't know what he's doing. Nath, you mentioned there the reserve game as well. I think that is worth mentioning. The ones who were involved in that, Mo File got a goal. Rob Ryan
Yes.
Red sponsored Mo File nonetheless. Ollie Palmer, like you said, was involved in that as well. Paul Mullin wasn't, interestingly. Maybe a bit closer
No.
to the first team frame if Jay Rodriguez is injured. And
Is he? Is he? Because that's the question. I don't know if that is the signified. People desperately want him to come back, don't they? That's obvious. Twitter and Instagram, and the question always is, where is Mullin? Why is Mullin playing? This is sad. We want Mullin in there. And we mentioned about him missing the Cambridge one, and I think that was a gut punch for him to not play in that one.
that
Not
was
even
the
travel.
one that, if he was going to
be
play, it felt like that one, didn't it?
Not even be in the 23, etc. And we've been over that in last week or the week before. I lose track. You would think, wouldn't you? Think, well, he's not. He's previously played a reserve game. He's not in the reserve game. But you can look at it through a different lens and say, well, if Rodriguez is a bit iffy, what about Ollie Palmer getting a reserve game to get some minutes into the legs? Maybe that means he's going to be. Maybe it's a choice between Mofal and Palmer. Probably more of the big man type. Maybe those two going at it to try and get some minutes, get into the first team. Seb Revan played in the reserves as well. We should say it was Chesterfield were leading 2-1 until late on. Rio Owen, the youngster, came on and scored an equaliser. But yeah, Revan, Fal, and Palmer. And if anything, the way I would look at it might even be a toss-up between Palmer and Fal. But it did sound like that Rodriguez was not serious, and it was just a strain, and he'll probably be involved. I mean, Parky's picked his first choice, and I would expect to be on the terraces at Wigan and Jay Rodriguez to be walking out the tunnel with Sam Smith.
Yeah, definitely. We teased it at the start. Steven Fletcher. We've not mentioned the Burton game yet, Nathan. And I guess maybe that is fitting for the first 70 minutes of it. It was an awful game of football for 70 minutes. It accelerated towards the end. I thought we were, very deserved winners, but it felt like a National League game for me. A team who's turned up to the race course and their only sort of purpose is to run down the clock, try and sort of frustrate Wrexham and stop them playing football. And that is not a criticism of Burton, because I think that was the most effective game plan for them to get results at the race course. That is not a criticism.
And down to 10 as well. Let's be real. And it is a red card as well. That's a shocking challenge on George Dobson.
Because it's weird, because watching it in the Tekken when it happened, we were like, oh, no, it's not a red card. It didn't look that bad. Seeing the replay, yeah, you can see why the red was given. We did what had to be done. And again, Parky deserves credit for me for those subs, because he kind of did what the fans wanted to do. I know the Rodriguez one might have been enforced, but then to bring on Lee, to bring on Barney, to go for the jugular and to go attacking, it was really fun that second half, because, like I said, it was like a non-league throwback. It was just, Wrexham know that they just need to break this team down. How can you do it? And there was a moment, maybe 10 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes into the second half, where we had a proper goalmouth scramble. Matty James knocked the ball to Rathbone. It was clipped towards the back post, headed away. Smith headed against the bar, hit a Burton player. And it was great. It was like being back in the National League again, because it was just bombardment and Wrexham just trying to get to this cause. You felt that when the goal went in, there would be more, as it turned out, and that was the case. And, people have had time to digest that. There's not too much more we can say. It's consequentialism at this time of the season. The result is all that matters.
I was going to say, obviously, we get the Sam Smith goal on the breakaway, and I think Marriott ends up with one as well.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say, there was some data going around where I saw it on Twitter by a guy called Jay, who does a lot of data stuff, quite good. And he put Shrewsbury Town, despite being bottom of League One, have the highest percentage of goals scored from counter-attacks. Fair enough, 15%. But actually, Wrexham have the lowest percentage of goals scored from counter-attack, which is just 1.69% of goals have come on the counter-attack. Now, obviously, a lot of teams are sitting a bit deeper. It's a low block. You've got to try and break down. But I did think, if is that down to just not having the pacing behind, or is it, like I say, just teams are just not attacking us? We haven't got the ability to stretch on the counter. I'm just curious, because we're rock bottom of that. It's not a criticism, because we're still scoring goals, but
particularly when last season we were I think in the EFL we were the team who were the fastest at getting it from back to front, weren't we, in terms of transitions and turnovers?
In League Two.
I think it was in the whole EFL, at one point certainly.
Oh right, okay, all right.
About half at least, or longer than that. But yeah, so and even me, I think I say most weeks we're quite a counter-attacking team. We play against teams on the break. A couple of things there is, one, working in journalism itself. You if you go to Opta and stuff, you can find the definition of a stat. So sometimes scoring on a counter-attack, you might not have done it quick enough. or something like that, or that the play's got to have started, from a certain area of
I
the
see
pitch
what you mean.
to the counter attack and stuff like that. So it's an interesting one.
I'll tell you
But
what. I'll see if I can quickly share my screen, Rich. So anyone who's watching on YouTube, if not, if you're listening, Wrexham, we're bottom. But I'm going to see if I can, just so that anyone who's watching can just see the data. Because it
big
might be curious, it
isn't
might
it?
not be. It might not be. But can you see that, Rich? There, with Shrewsbury at the very
Whoa, that's
top.
the wrong tab. Oh no, yeah, I can see that. That's fine actually. Yeah, 1.69.
But you look at the teams who are scoring most on the counter attack, which is Shrewsbury, Crawley, Burton. I mean, all of those, I haven't got the table in front of me, all of those are in a relegation battle, if not in the relegation zone. So typically, they are able to have a lot of space in behind because the teams they're playing are just better than them. Which is interesting. You see Wrexham near the bottom, Reading near the bottom, Wickham sort of near the bottom. Just curious. I just find little things like that interesting, Rich. That's all.
Yeah, I need Sooty to write into a piece that I can understand. But I wanted to get onto Steven Fletcher again. We've mentioned him a lot lately. It was Fletcher again, ole, going around the racecourse ground. Really good atmosphere as well, I thought, on Saturday, particularly in that second half. Not just the penalty, which was dispatched coolly and clinically. It's the flick on for Smith to get the penalty in the first place. It's that intelligence, that just expertise. And I know it's against Burton and the game suited Fletcher because we basically only attacked from the time he was on the pitch. He scored again. He always scores. The fans love him. You always feel there's going to be a goal when he comes onto the pitch. He has said this week that playing for Wrexham has been his favourite moment of his playing career. He was poised to retire if Wrexham had signed Luke Armstrong. That deal didn't go through. We got Steven Fletcher instead. The greatest sliding doors moment maybe in Wrexham football history. And now we approach the end of the season where, okay, we don't know which division we're going to be in next season. But even if we end up in League One again next season, in the worst case, is he worth another go? Or is that setting out almost too negatively? Because part of me says we can't keep on relying on this guy who's aging and getting to the twilight of his career. But he keeps scoring goals. So why the hell would you not try and keep him?
Yeah. So which side of the fence are you gonna sit on the fence there? What would you do before I give you what the listeners would do and what I would do?
It's because part of me says if we go to the Championship, can we really rely on Steven Fletcher? Is that just being a bit too nostalgic? You've got to remember, Nave, for the first 3 or 4 months of the season, we both said that it was a mistake to give him a new 1-year deal this year. And, we're not going to pretend that we thought it was a great deal all the time. We thought he was going to retire. We thought it was a write-off. He's come back. He's playing good football. The pessimist to me, which is always there, says, he's one injury away from it being a mistake. But why not? Give him 1 more year, please, Parky. Give him 1 more year. If he gets injured, so what? Make him the coach, make him the tea lady, make him the groundsman. I don't care. Steven Fletcher needs to stay at Wrexham.
Well, I mean, that was going to steal my point. I thought you were going to say no, so I would be able to argue the counter, but we're going to be in agreement. I just think, look, part of me when Rodriguez signed on that 18-month contract felt like, okay, he is the new Fletcher, so to speak. Yeah. He will assume that role. Fletcher will move on. At the end of the season, is one of only a few players that hasn't been offered a new contract, hasn't signed fresh terms yet, so to speak. And I thought, what, Rodriguez will be that guy, will be the Fletcher. But I actually don't know if that needs to be the case. I don't know if you can run it back with both of them. And then at the end of next season, maybe you go to both of them. We're gonna have a real overhaul, and because their experience will be valuable on younger players, on other strikers that might come in. So we commented, or I commented on the Instagram on Steven Fletcher's post that just put new contract ... with the kind of eyes emoji and the shaking of the hands, to which he responded just with the eyes emoji, and that obviously triggered a big reaction on socials. Dean put, Fletch sounds like he'd play for a free kit bag at the minute. Bryn's Barn put, a striker who is happy to be on the bench. It's an absolute no-brainer given the impact he has. Well worth a squad place for me. Ben put, this guy is a legend, but if he's anywhere near the team in the Championship, we have a massive problem. Who else have we got on here? Simon put, with the contribution Fletcher's given, how can you not offer a new contract? The guy has been immense. Prime Steven Fletcher would have been well out of reach for a club like Wrexham, but he has been awesome. Long live Fletch. Jay has put, and he was all set to retire until Luke Armstrong's transfer fell through, which is what you mentioned. John put, we 100% need him at the club next season, whichever league we are in. He is the man, and tagged Rob McElhenney. Who else have we got? Someone sent us a Rex Albania, USA. Sorry if I got that wrong. Said, may I please present to the court Exhibit A, which was a picture of goals per 90 minutes in League One, Rich. With sat in number one in top spot is Steven Fletcher with a goal with 0.76 goals per 90, which is ahead of Louis Barry, which is ahead of Jay Stansfield, Jack Marriott, Richard Kone, Lee Gregory, Alfie May. Let's do two more then. Nathan Ashcroft put no-brainer, extend. And Dylan put, Fletcher did a lot this season to push us up the table and into promotion hopes. I'd love to hear the GOAT say I've got one or two more in me. And there's one more. Matt said, I'd give my left arm to have a 30-year-old Steven Fletcher. So, I was skeptical at the beginning of the season. Don't get me wrong. We both were, as you said. I'm growing more and more round to the idea of going out and buying a top quality, pacey, championship level striker on decent money, on big money, a player that is a statement signing for us, that is, wow, what a move Wrexham have made there in the championship. But there's no way you can convince me that Steven Fletcher isn't worth keeping in the building. His experience, remember that story earlier in the season when Ollie Palmer ran straight over to him because they'd been going for coffee and they'd been talking about his movement. I think can't remember who he scored against or whether it was last season. I'm sure it was this season. And he ran over to him and Fletch might have been on the bench and little things like that we don't see every day that make such a difference. So Steven Fletcher, put pen to paper because he's one of, Rich, these are the contracts, right? If I quickly read you out the contracts of Wrexham striker situation. Sam Smith, under contract until at least June 2028. Paul Mullin, June 2027. Mo Fall, June 2027. Rodriguez, June 26. Palmer, June 26. Marriott, June 26. Bickerstaff, I believe, is June 26. Sam Dolby and Steven Fletcher out of contract at the end of the season. So, what are we doing?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Like I said, I think, obviously we've got promoted next season. The goal would just be to survive. And I think that's when Rodriguez and Fletcher come into their own again. Their purpose is just to keep us afloat for a year. And then we can hopefully be sort of establishing ourselves in the championship. If that happens, of course. For me, next season, we kind of need to work out how this happens. But what I'd like Rodriguez, Fletcher, Sam Smith and Jack Marriott at the club. I'd then like us to sign a superstar striker who's the new main man. Paul Mullin, I'd like to loan, maybe. I don't know. It hurts me because part of me still says, Paul Mullin could do it for us. But if he's not going to be part of the picture next season, maybe you just sell it.
Have to sign a striker going into the championship. Yeah. If we get, like I say, if we get that, I'm not even going to caveat as much as you. If we got to the championship,
maybe Mullin, Palmer have to go.
Surely.
Far loan, but then is there any purpose? Because is he ever going to be championship quality?
I think you've got to try and elevate his value a bit. If he goes
it would
to
be
League
hard
One,
to write him off, wouldn't it? After that, what he's had this season.
Yeah. I think you've got to give him an opportunity to play regularly, score goals for somebody. It's probably not going to be us. I saw somebody float on Twitter that some of Sam Dolby's best games for Wrexham were against higher league opposition, and would we consider bringing him back in the championship? I think that ship has sailed. I think the minute we didn't recall him in January was enough of a sign to him, probably, and to us.
Not recalling him in January basically confirmed that Parky thinks Sam Smith's a better footballer, a better striker for Wrexham right now.
But obviously, we offered him a contract, didn't we, as well, which was kind of a strange. We don't want you back.
The fact we didn't recall him, do you know what I mean?
Right. I'm with you.
That's the short-term goal, was to get promoted this season. The fact we didn't bring Dolby back says that maybe Sam Smith's better at getting us.
Yeah, so he will go. With respect, Bickerstaff I would be amazed if he played for us again in the first team. I'd be stunned, actually. Palmer, I think, is he just going to want to sit there and train and come up and train and do all that travelling to not even get in the matchday squad? I'd be surprised. even with the clothing and everything. Mullin, I just don't know. Do you, what means more to these players? Somebody mentioned on our YouTube comments that Mullin, the part of the reason he joined Wrexham was not just
Locale.
financially, was locale. It was to be close by, and that's why I floated maybe a Wigan, who we'll obviously get onto previewing later, but somebody like that, because did we raise the prospect of somebody going to MLS? I'd be amazed if Mullin, did that.
Like I said, yeah, I think one of the key reasons he joined Wrexham was genuinely because of the location to his family. I think if someone like Orlando said, "Look, you can come over. This is your new house for 3-4 years. Your family's taken care of." I think that's a different conversation, different question,
Right.
isn't it? But he's not going to go out there by himself if his family have to stay behind, obviously.
God no.
And on that remit, you would say, look, Northwest is maybe where he'd stick around to. You could maybe say he could go to teams in around Manchester, teams in the Midlands as well, just about. But
if you don't come on again, if you don't make the bench, you don't kick a ball for Wrexham again, and that'll be a bitter pill for a lot of people to swallow if you do end up leaving and there's been no proper goodbye. That was partly why a lot of people really liked that Instagram post that Ryan Reynolds did for Anthony Ford, and the reception that Anthony Ford got when he went around all 4 sides, that he got an incredible reception, as he should, as he deserved. And a really nice post from Ryan, actually, that he waited for him when the Burton players arrived. And I know some people hate that kind of stuff, but how can you hate on to someone being genuinely nice about missing someone who gave your club a lot and gave your club a lot of effort? And I think as a fan base, I'm glad we did appreciate Ford, because, sorry to just segue quickly, Rich, away from the Mullin thing, but he did a lot in the background where he wasn't getting picked, he wasn't registered at one point, and he kept turning up every day, and he kept training, and he kept doing his bit, and he'd play in the cup matches, and he'd travel with the team knowing he wasn't going to be involved, and all these different things, and all the family drama and the difficulty with his wife and everything. So yeah, really pleased he got a great reception, and I hope that Palmer and Mullin and File and anyone else who is pushed out the door as a byproduct of either we're still in League One or we go up. You just hope these people don't get completely sort of kicked out the back door.
No, I really don't think for a second that would happen. The quirk is, we're sort of, I know because we're recording today on the Wednesday, which is Phil Hardy's birthday, and of course he never got a testimonial for Wrexham. Easter Monday will be the anniversary of his one Wrexham goal. Was that against Colchester, the penalty? And he never got a testimonial. You're not going to give Paul Mullin or Ollie Palmer a Wrexham testimonial.
No.
But you almost hope that in, I don't know, 10, 20 years, you almost have like a Wrexham Legends game where the non-league promotion team comes back and they just play. Do you know what I mean? You get to watch them just roll back the clock again one more time. They are Wrexham greats, and they did what felt so impossible. And that is something you can never, ever, ever forget, is the National League promotion will never be bettered for me. I know you could potentially get to the Premier League one day, but we'd given up on the dream of getting out of the National League, and we not only got promoted, we steamrolled the league, and we were beating all these teams that used to be troublesome for us. And we had a joke, didn't we, in our WhatsApp group the other day, and this isn't meant to be too disparaging, but our dear friend James Kelly, he bumped into, which team had he bumped into at a service station?
Connors Key Nomads, was it? Or
yeah, but it wasn't just Connors Key Nomads, but we were talking about teams in the National League that we feared, and it was like Boreham Wood and Dover, and these were the teams that were just seen as these final bosses. Like, do you remember when we used to fear going to play Dover?
And Chesterfield, and
yeah,
I know they're in the EFL now, but
Bromley, how far we've come, and we
used to panic going to Bromley. Rich, we used to think, oh God, we're never going to win there. This is a horrible place to go.
And that's how much it's changed, and that's something you can't forget. But to answer your question, yes, Steven Fletcher should be on a new contract. But the striker, the striker sort of roster, I suppose, for next season is a really compelling one, because, like I said, we've got so many players under contract. There is a huge amount of nostalgia and sentimentality with those who are under contract as well. But you can't, as we said earlier in the podcast, Parky will make the right decisions. I have full faith in that. It is just a lot of players to get rid of in one window if and so we get as many out the door as we kind of want.
Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Right, so to come out of that little break there, remember you can message us, robryanred@gmail.com, whatever you think of the striker debate or Fletcher. Should he get a new contract? What would you do with Mullin Palmer this weekend? What are you thinking if Rodriguez isn't good to go? But before we get on to Wigan, I did want to say that we did do a little YouTube, an additional video, an exclusive video on the YouTube channel. So sorry to all the Spotify and audio listeners. I know you're very, very loyal each week, but that was just on the YouTube channel about the proposed or the planned trip to Australia, Rich, where Wrexham are due to play Melbourne Victory in July, mid to late July. I think that's what Tom, who I spoke to from 9 News Melbourne, he was on the channel talking us through months in the works. A lot of discussions about Australia, the third biggest market for Welcome to Wrexham. You can go and listen to that and give you more details. But Rich, I mean, Club World Cup quickly in the US. I mean, it was always going to be tricky to capture the eyeballs with the Club World Cup going on in the US at the same time. Australia could be fun.
Yeah, it could be very fun. I suppose, it's uncharted territory for Wrexham, and we've always had that debate, haven't we? I know we can kind of be a bit lazy and to blame for this, that when we talk about worldwide Reds, we often just say North America, but there is a big fan base elsewhere,
Huge,
in the globe. And Australia is one of those markets, and, a key part of getting that supporters sort of demographic on side is to make it accessible, make them feel a part of the family. And if you take Wrexham there to Melbourne, as has been suggested, that is something that people will remember for a long time, because not many Premier League clubs do go all that way. And if Wrexham are doing that while they're hopefully going to be gearing up for a championship campaign, then fantastic. And
Marvel Stadium. I mean, it writes itself.
It?
Come on. Marvel Deadpool at Marvel
the
Stadium.
Disney Reds at Marvel Stadium. Could you write it? Yeah, it's.
I mean, you can write it because they are. That's why they're putting it rather than the MCG. And also, Rich, we should point out now we'll hold our hands up that we don't give the women's team as much kudos as we should. They had a great result at the weekend against Cardiff, slaying a nemesis.
Abby Patrick is unbelievable as well, by the way.
So we keep tabs on all the results, and we often get caught up on the men's side of things. But we do want to say, huge result against Cardiff, and we should say that not just the men are going to a far-flung place in Australia. The women are due to be involved in the Hong Kong Soccer Sevens.
It's like the rugby, like the old rugby sevens, isn't it? That used to be held in Hong Kong. I mean, that
sounds cool, doesn't it? Just that immediately sounds. Have you ever been to Hong Kong, Rich, or not? Or is that still to tick off the list?
No, I've not been to Hong Kong.
No, neither have I. Well, Wrexham are. They've been, because the draw was made on Wednesday when we're recording this. They are drawn in Women's Group B against Chonburi FC from Thailand and Eastern Thunder from Singapore. What a name that is for a team, by the way. So Wrexham in a group with East. Think about that for a second. Wrexham women, who only a couple of seasons ago were able to offer out, semi-pro contracts and really take things to the next level, got into the Adran Premier, where they've done brilliantly. They've taken it to Swansea, they've taken it to Cardiff. They're regularly landing these blows. Now, I wouldn't even say it's always a David and Goliath situation now. They're showing they can be putting themselves on an equal footing.
There's some really good recruitment as well on the women's side.
Great. And Steve Dale and Gemma and everyone's done a really good job. But if you'd have said a few years ago when we started the podcast, when Gemma came on at the very, very start, and we were dreaming about a European adventure, whatever. Imagine if you'd have said they're going to be one of the invited teams to play in Hong Kong Soccer Sevens, where you're going to be the star attraction in a group that also features Chonburi FC from Thailand and Eastern Thunder from Singapore.
Like Western team in the whole tournament.
So the other teams in it are Hong Kong Football Club and TSL FC and Kitchee. Now, I've no idea where TSL FC are from, but who knows? TSL, you'll find out for us. But they are the teams I can see on the women's side, which is absolutely ridiculous, really. Chonburi FC. Where's TSL FC from? Do we know?
No.
We don't. We'll move on from that because we don't know. We're just going to have a long silence of Rich. But, yeah, I mean, what an experience. TSLFC, I don't know. You keep looking while I keep talking.
It's coming up with a team called TSL who play in the London... The problem is TSL's quite a vague...
TFL, yeah, no.
Basically, there's a team called the Telecom Super League, the TSL Education FC who play in London, and there's also a team who seem to be around the outskirts of Bury with 180 followers on Instagram. I would be staggered if they'd been invited.
Well, what I would say, Rich, is they are the only sort of Western team in the women's tournament. But overall, there's like a Masters tournament and then a main tournament. A lot of Premier League academies are going over. So Aston Villa, Brighton, Newcastle, Leicester won't be Premier League for much longer, and West Ham, they're all in the men's section of the tournament. So there are other teams, but in the women's side of things, just Wrexham. Wrexham are the star name, the big attraction. Up against, like I say, Chonburi and Eastern Thunder. So what an experience that'll be for anyone who gets to go to that. That'll just be, yeah, I'd love to go to Hong Kong. I'd love to explore Asia a bit more. That's an amazing trip, and good luck to them.
From my research, TSL play in the Chinese Hong Kong Women's Premier League. So yeah, it looks like Wrexham will be the only Western representatives in the women's side of that.
That is great.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And like you said, it's one of those where I'd love to be able to give the club more coverage. We got our hands tied and pushed to full throttle covering the men's this season. And it's one of those where it's always lose in that sense for us, that we don't want to just sporadically mention them at times because it feels like tokenism, but then we can't maybe do them justice that they deserve. So, Hey, if someone wants to set up a Wrexham women's podcast, hey, do that. It'd be great. Wigan Athletic this weekend.
Yes.
For the men. 5 games from the Championship. Do you change anything?
Do I change it? Is George Dobson going to be good to go with stitches in his knee? And did you see the injury update? There's been a bout of illness going through the squad. All words that I don't want to hear at this. Not because it's an excuse. I just don't want to hear them. I don't want that level of negativity. I listen to it with you.
Why do you speak to me?
I speak to you. That's my 1 hour of like pessimism that I can handle for the week. So Sam Smith's been battling illness. George Dobson's had stitches in his shin from that horrendous tackle. Rodriguez has had missed a couple of training sessions, but is largely okay. Like I said, I think if you can help it, you're going to go with the same back three. You're going to go with Arthur. It's the wing backs for me. That'd be the only change. What are you doing? Are you going to go with Barney? Are you going to go with Longman? Are you going to go with McLean? McLean up against his former club? Surely that's a complete no-brainer. Surely he'll be sort of. He doesn't need much extra motivation, but he's got to start at left wing back, hasn't he? Or do you go with Longman on the left and Barney on the right and just try and go for it?
Yeah,
that's the only thing I'm thinking. The rest, I think, picks itself right now.
Yeah, for me, it does just come down to fitness, doesn't it? Really, on what happens in that regard. I mean, Brunt was much better, wasn't it? I think there had been an argument before the Burton game that you could have brought O'Connor in for Brunt at left centre back. Brunt got team of the week. I thought he was really good. Really, really well. So I wouldn't change that whatsoever. You got Arthur, who is player of the month in League One. The wingers is interesting, isn't it? I think you've got to start McLean, particularly in away games. I think that there was a time and a place for Longman and Barnett to start. That would have been the type of game, such as Burton at home. Again, I know this is hindsight, it's really easy to critique. That's the type of game where I'd like to have seen Marriott start with Smith, or I'd like to have seen Barnett and Longman, because from the off you've got to attack. Because that's what I would have said. Maybe not for Wigan away as much. So I'd go McLean. I'd maybe go Barney on the right, just to freshen it up a little bit, give them that rivalry, give them that competition at right wing back. Midfield, I wouldn't be against Dobson James again for this one. I know that there's,
I've come around now. I've stopped arguing for Elliot Lee to come in. It's not going to happen. I just
thought James was good
it.
again against Burton. I know he's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I know there's going to be time and place for it. But he's going to be integral for these last 5 games, just because of what he offers, really.
Experience. And
then you go Rathbone over Lee, I think, for this one.
Yeah, it's an away game. You're not dropping Ollie Rathbone, let's be honest.
If they're fit, you have to go Rodriguez Smith, because that is clearly Parky's front two. They've
worked
well together.
If Rodriguez isn't, what are you doing? Because it's going to be Smith. Plus, is it Marriott? Is it Farl? Is it Palmer? Is it Mullin? Is it Fletcher?
I'd go Marriott, just because, again, I think Sooty said this when he was on the podcast. Fletcher's been pretty poor as a starter this season. And he even was to a degree last season. I know there's obviously the Barrow game that amplified his stats quite a bit. But he's so much better off the bench, because that's when he can be at his optimum. And for me, that's what I'd like to see. Obviously, my preference would be Rodriguez Smith this weekend. If there's got to be a change, it'd be Smith and Marriott for me. Just because you still need Fletcher as that impact sub off the bench, and you really lose him at his best if you start him in a game, which is the odd quirk.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think if Rodriguez isn't good to go, yeah, I'd probably agree with you. Put Mo Farah on the bench, and I'll manifest a Mo Farah winner in stoppage time in front of the fans, because it's like, what, 4,000 in that North Stand at Wigan? You get a lot of fans in there. That would be unbelievable limbs. And look, I was thinking the other day, it's this week, I think the 13th is the anniversary of our promotion from League Two. And I was looking back at some of the pictures of Mullin in the kind of paddock area sort of thing, on people's shoulders, and Barney just celebrating wildly on the pitch, and the jubilation of beating Forest Green that day, and obviously the well drawn out story that neither you or I were there, and we took it very badly, and we got shouted
Or Rob
at.
and Ryan.
Or Rob and Ryan, the four.
The four linchpins of Wrexham Football Club.
That's what I was going to say, but I stopped myself. Or missed
We'd be the Mount Rushmore, wouldn't we? Just the four of us.
Who's first on Mount Rushmore? Is that the number one, the GOAT? But I was looking as well. What I want to say before we wrap this up, we will in a second. We're talking about achievements, where would Parky be? Whatever. If Wrexham can get up, and I know he's watching from the sidelines, and that must be killing him right now, but if Wrexham managed to get over the line, Andy Cannon will have been promoted for 4 straight seasons. Do you know how mad that is?
Yeah.
He will have been promoted for 4 successive seasons. That to me is absolutely mind-boggling if that happens. I know he's like willing us on from home, and he's posting all the time, every time there's a man of the match performance, or you just tell it's eating him inside, I'm sure.
And the quote as well is that Burton game was the type of game where he would have thrived at the weekend, trying to pick apart a team that's sitting deep.
So
I just hope we don't miss him too much in these next 5.
I hope he's still around it. I hope his recovery is going well, and his 4th promotion is in the hands of his teammates now, and we'll see. Like I say, big game for Ryan Barnett on Saturday. I think he's top of the assist charts. He'll want to stay there. Wrexham could end the season with a promotion, the Golden Boot winner, the top assist maker, the Golden Glove. It could be one of the historically all-time great seasons of any club in the EFL, honestly.
Imagine if we were good. Might have won the league then. Thank you very much for joining us. Nath, prediction for Saturday then. Early kickoff. I don't like them. What do you reckon?
Early kickoff. I'm going to go Wrexham 2, Wigan 0.
I'm going 1-0 Wrexham. 1-0 up the ticks. No, 1-0 Wrexham. Yeah. TikToks. Here we go. Wrexham versus Wigan this weekend. We'll be back, of course, next week to preview a delicious Easter doubleheader, Blackpool and Bristol Rovers. Thank you very much for joining us on Rob Ryan Red. A reminder, you can get in contact with us, robryanred@gmail.com, robryanred.com, and conveniently, Rob Ryan Red on all the socials as well. Thank you to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music stings we used in the show. Thank you to Red 10 People Development for their continued support of the podcast. Thank you as well to Wrexham Lager for keeping me very... what should I say?
Keeping you from being thirsty, keeping you quenched.
Yeah,
is it?
that's quite a polite way to say.
But, you better save some for me, by the way. Just
there's a crate waiting for you here, mate. I'm not sure we'll get that to you, but we'll sort that out. Thank you so much. Take care. Enjoy your weekend. Up the town. We'll see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.